Hi there, my name is Evelyn Weiss and my online business is currently doing $215,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Over the past few years, I've also helped hundreds of business owners with their paid communities and memberships. In this video, I want to address the top 40 mistakes that I see that can cause paid communities and memberships to fail. I'm gonna walk you through and give you a quick solution and antidote for each of them. Before we dive in, we need to talk about the number one mistake. I can see pretty quickly if a community owner is headed towards success or towards failure. How can I see that? I see it by what evidence the paid community or membership owner is looking for. There are two types. One is always looking for proof that eventually their paid community membership is doomed to fail. The other one is always looking for proof that they are winning, that they're on the right track, that this is eventually going to work. And what happens is that what evidence you're looking for, you will see. We filter the information that comes in, and our mindset, our programming will determine in what we are paying attention to and what not. Depending on what you believe in, which direction you're headed, you will let different information come in and you will interpret it differently. And no matter where you are, you will be right eventually. You can decide for yourself if you want it. You need to commit to looking for evidence that it will work, because then all of those challenges that I'm going to list for you now and talk you through will just be that. They're just challenges that you're excited to tackle on and overcome on your way up to building this long-term, beautiful paid community and membership. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. So there are different areas that we are going to look at where I cluster the problems. One is failure around the creator when the creator has a lacking foundation. The next one is the value architecture. A lot of things can go wrong there. Third one, member experience problems. The fourth one, mistakes and pitfalls around community culture. Fifth one, problems with your growth engine. Sixth one, your operational infrastructure. 7, your evolution and improvement. And last but not least, 8, your support systems. All right, let's start in with the creator foundation. So who you are as the membership owner, as the community holder. The first one I see very, very commonly is the founder burnout. I recently released a video about how you can manage your energy. And if you're feeling really burned out in your business, right? And if what I just said about the downward spiral kind of hit a little bit of a nerve, then I highly recommend that you check out this video. It especially also talks about taking an energy inventory, and I would highly recommend that you do that no matter what stage you're in, whether you're just feeling burned out starting or you're feeling a little bit stuck, burned out in your membership. Go check out this video. It's super detailed and it will really help you to avoid this membership owner creator burnout. The next one is that you can be the knowledge bottleneck, right? So especially when we are very experienced, right? And we have been through a lot, we accumulated a lot of in-depth knowledge about how certain things work. It can be hard to get them out and translate them for others in a digestible way, just because we immersed so deeply into something that it can be hard for us to understand how we can translate it back for people. Now, what I recommend is that you actually create an experience extracting process for you so that you can translate your experiences into frameworks that are accessible for others. What does that mean? For example, I have defined the daily actions that I need to take to reach my goals. Super, super simple along health, wealth, and relationships. And so I'm tracking certain actions every single day. And at the end of the day, I am doing a Loom brain dump. So I'm just sitting down, I record myself, and I talk through everything that has been relevant on that day towards reaching my overall vision and reaching my overall goals, everything that I've done. And that starts to serve as a documentation for the things that I do. And when I create content for teachings and programs and YouTube videos, I do the same. I start to identify the topic. What do I want to teach? I break it down into smaller chunks, first by recording the overall Loom, then taking that, using AI to basically map out what steps do I need to talk about. Then I talk about those steps. And then again, I use the transcript to surface that insight. And I use AI to say, okay, this is the insight. What does it mean from a framework perspective, right? So you need to start working with yourself to document and then extract and then contextualize and framework your experience. Then it will become accessible for others. Another nuance to that is that when you're building membership, you typically, if it's in the education space, you also want to build community. And what that means is that you also need to make space for member-led content. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but know that not every input always has to come from you. It is also about how you make space and embrace when members are adding content. All right, the next one is authenticity struggles and identity struggles. I see this so often that creators struggle to say, I'm not even sure what this community is about anymore. My market is changing, or I'm not sure if this is working. Like, I'm trying different things. It's also a mistake that I have made in all transparency. My programs used to be around a certain outcome. Funnels and Ads Pro, coaching membership method, right? So I was teaching people a path to the outcome. But inevitably, as I kept walking my talk and being the person I am, my experience improved. My solution repertoire, exploded. And suddenly those memberships I created around a specific framework that worked for me, they felt like a cage. Because yes, I'm able to do this and this is still working. But I also want to talk about the new thing that I'm doing, right? I also want to talk about the things that I'm exploring. So what I eventually did was that I consolidated my communities. And now my main teaching community is Grow with Evelyn, right? So I can now grow into any direction that I want. And I really believe that that is the future of educational communities, is centering people around who you are as an experienced worker, right? With all your goals and all your ambitions and all the things that you do, you can hold that space for people who have their shared values and shared ambitions, and you just grow alongside on the same journey, and you're feeding everything back that you achieve and experience into the community to make it accessible and, repeatable with less risk and effort and inconvenience for your members. So thinking about how can you put the biggest frame around it so it's long-term sustainable for you as your identity evolves inevitably, hopefully, right? Because you should grow, you should change. Now, the other side to this is the problem of having imposter syndrome, right? And imposter syndrome basically arises like, who am I to talk about this, right? Who am I to think that I can make a community around it? I'm not one of the people that will tell you everybody can make a course. You already have knowledge that you can sell in your head. Might not be true, right? You might still need to go on personal growth journey towards a societally accepted goal and show that you are able to make significant progress and achieve first milestones. That can totally be the case. At the same time, while you start doing this, you can already start building audience to eventually launch into a paid community. The antidote to imposter syndrome is to set goals that are ambitious, but you can potentially achieve, and publicly document your work towards them. Now, what will happen to those few creators that will eventually stick and transparently and helpfully document their journey is that they can start helping others naturally. Others will seek help if they have the same problem, and if there's a person making real progress, sharing real insights, sharing real practical tips. You're not required to do anything else. You should not be doing anything else. Anything else would be deceptive, hence why it feels inauthentic and why you're feeling like an imposter. So ambitious goal, progress towards it, keep sharing, eventually reach the first milestones, and you will see that people will start asking you. It's a very natural process. You just can't hack it without feeling like an imposter, so don't hack it. Next, poor boundaries. And oh my goodness, I have suffered with this so much. I even asked Leila Ramosi in the interview that I did with her how I can finally set boundaries. And so what she was able to unlock for me, and I've read all the books about it, watched all the videos about it, I even take courses about it, and that was in therapy. She unlocked for me that setting boundaries, I'm looking at it as like this big bubble when I can break it down into smaller chunks. So she taught me how can I look at those specific moments when I struggle to set boundaries, and how can I develop a strategy for those specific moments and then practice the strategy to a point where it becomes a habit. It has been such a big unlock for me. And now I am able to reach out to certain members who keep crossing, right? Now I'm able to reset expectations because I was able to isolate it down to this specific skill. Develop a script with ChatGPT, actually Claude, that makes me feel like I'm being still gentle and polite about it, but also firm. And now I can do this. So boundaries, think of it as like in smaller things, break it down to the actual moments where your boundaries fall, and then develop a strategy for those moments implement them until they're a habit. If you're curious about that, Leila breaks it down so beautifully. So we're going to link the interview somewhere here. Now, next one is in the Creator Foundation, evolution paralysis. So this is what I've been talking to when you have a membership around a specific result, as funny as it sounds, then it can corner you. And then you're not sure as you evolve and as you find out new things that work, and also as you're finding out what doesn't work, how can you correct expectations and course without feeling again like you're falling out of authenticity. So there, I would say set yourself up for success by communicating the right things, right? And also by just documenting what you do and make that a constant thing. Your goal should be to always aim higher in whatever growth journey you're on. That way you keep things fresh, and that way you also keep inspiring your members. Then the rest is how do I set up talking about the things that we do in here without creating the wrong expectations. And last but not least, platform dependence. So last year around this time, I was really depending on Facebook and Facebook ads. All my communities were on there. Facebook ads was my main traffic source. We decided in February last year that we will participate in the first ever School Games. Came second with 81,000 in new monthly recurring revenue generated in that month on the platform. And ever since then, I've doubled down on growing my email list. I made significant efforts to grow on YouTube and to grow a following on Skool. And with that, I can now say super confidently and very happy that I'm not dependent on Facebook at all anymore. So thinking about it's okay when you're growing in one platform, but eventually there comes the time when you need to de-risk. Now, problems around the value architecture. One problem is when you have an unclear value proposition. In that regard, you would want to have an only statement like, what is the transformation? What is the thing that people can only get in my community? And the way that I solved this for myself was grow with Evelyn. The thing that people can only get in my community is me. And again, tying into the things that I said before, this makes it very sustainable because I am further working towards my personal goal and I have the routine for documenting and extracting my information and feeding it back. I am just basically living in documentation mode and I can just share authentically what I experience. And with that, the unique value proposition of my community is always updated and is always fresh and keeps attracting more people the further I lean into that. The next thing is product to market fit. Right, so lots of people struggle because their community has a weak product to market fit. There are two paths to go about this. Either by starting with a really small problem, establishing yourself as an expert, and then roll out the expertise from there into other areas as you gain more experience, improve, and help more people in various areas. Or you start the other way. You give a ton of value for free, documenting your journey, sharing your experience, and then eventually launch into a personal brand. Now, the next one is weak differentiation. If you've opted for the second option, like giving for free and then eventually launching into a community around you and growing with you and being on the journey with you, then you don't have this problem. But on the other hand, if you started with solving this really small but painful and meaningful problem that people are willing to pay for solving, and then you're outgrowing the problem solution membership eventually, the problem that I see here is that really there are perceived only so many problems that people are willing to pay for to have them solved. Now, the mistake that people are making is to market them too similar, right? So think of it like in travel, there are only so many popular destinations in the world that people want to go for. So now when everybody is advertising the destination, all of the travel agents, they look the same. Now, where people need to make the difference is in describing how we're going to travel to the destination, right? Are we taking a party bus? Are we taking the plane? Are we going on a cruise? Are we doing a road trip in an RV, right? So how do we get to the destination? What will dictate how? It is your values. So a lot of people cannot differentiate themselves from the market because they don't know what values they hold dear to their heart. So they don't know what boundaries exist for the mechanisms that they can use to achieve the goal. This was how I was able to set myself apart in a very competitive market, marketing for coaches and course creators, because one thing that was off the records for me for a very long time, based on my values, was offering a high ticket. I didn't feel confident enough. I didn't feel like I have enough people in the audience where that would really make sense. I didn't see how I could provide enough value to justify those prices. So my growth model was low ticket based, right? And actually I did the majority, most of my 6 million from low ticket sales. The only high ticket I offered started this year in 2024. So I started in 2020. 2024 was the first time I offered a high ticket, which is a $5,000 per year mastermind for people that are further on the journey. And so far I sold 50 spots, right? So if you can do the math, you can see how it's a fraction of the income that I made. And what that did was that having these values around wanting to be really, really fair once I charge a higher ticket and wanting to be really experienced, wanting to be really worked out, that set me apart because it dictated the methodologies I could choose. So I worked a lot with lead magnets and email marketing. I worked a lot with self-liquidating offer funnels. I worked a lot with launches and workshops. And all of these things I would have approached differently if I was to sell a high ticket program right from the start. So my values and ethical considerations in that regard, they set boundaries around how I can reach the final destination. And eventually there were a lot of people who loved that concept and who also saw the same problems as I did and who hold the same values as I did. So that was a way for me to differentiate myself. So one way to do this would be to start creating a competitive map, right? So who in your space is offering the same destination? If you don't have destination clarity, that needs to be the first thing you do, right? What's the problem that I solve? And even if you're doing free content, it will need to be positioned around solving a problem for people, shared values to the shared goal. You also need to have that if you're starting with the free content. Now, who is also leading people towards that goal? How they're doing it in a way that you agree with. So what do you think is brilliant? Where do you disagree? And by bouncing back and forth between people who have the similar journey and you're saying, okay, this is aligned, this is not aligned, here's how I would say that, you're carving out your unique positioning in the market. And that way, once you know your position, you can communicate your position. And once you can communicate your position, you can differentiate yourself. So the next one is misaligned pricing. I used to price my memberships $7, right below $10 if it was a membership I would run direct ads to, and I would price them $27 and up all the way to $49 if it was a backend membership in a funnel, right? A main membership that's usually closed, so where I could also work with urgency. That works beautifully in my funnel that I had set up. Like I told you, I have since simplified my systems, not because that didn't work anymore, but because it's in alignment with the lifestyle that I ultimately want to have and the point in the journey where I am at, right? I made this decision after I had 10,000 paying monthly members. And so that was the right decision to say, I want to simplify, I want to consolidate, because the growth journey in the future that I picked for myself is that I want to embrace the artist arc, not the CEO arc, right? So Alex Ramos, you talked about it. You basically have these two ways to grow your business, right? So think of it, you are somebody who makes those handmade bags, right? And you do a good job and you start to build up referrals and eventually your business starts to grow. Now you have two decisions. You can either start to hire a team, train others on how to do it and grow your business till you eventually sit in the CEO role with a really competent team, but you're not making bags anymore. The other alternative is you keep making bags, but you regulate the demand by increasing the price. For myself, I have decided that I love making bags. I love teaching about marketing. I love doing it. I want to keep doing it myself because I really love it. I love to work with members so closely. So that was the setting that I ultimately chose. And to get to the setting on Skool, I eventually did price increasing launches to find my sweet spot. And I made a really detailed post about this. Maybe we can put it up on the screen so you can make a screenshot about how the pricing strategy works. If you want to see more about that, you can comment below and I can make a dedicated video around pricing strategy for your paid communities and memberships. The next one is unsustainable economics. And here I cannot tell you the amount of time when I have seen, people with comparatively a really small membership, like 50 people, paying contractors something like 3 to 5K a month to help with the management. We can very, very quickly grow our membership and, create a huge overhead. I've also been in this trap in 2023. I tried to professionalize, right? When I tried to go into the CEO arc, I blew my cost up. And the problem was that it did not increase my member satisfaction. It actually decreased it, right? So it's very, very easy to blow up your cost as a membership owner. May that be because of contractors or because of tools that you use, or because you keep switching marketing methods, right? And you hop from one to another, or because you're not as good in your delivery as the high promises you have made. And now you have word of mouth, not only not working for you, but against you. So all of that can lead to unsustainable economics. So you need to know, what is my income from my membership and what are my expenses? And you need to be really, really mindful and smart about your expenses. So have a budget, track your income, track your expenses, plan for profit. And, if you're getting into the realm where it's serious, like you're making a living from that thing, you need to get a good accountant, right, to help you with that. And you can totally have them. That was before my dad came on. I had my accountant creating this budget for me on a monthly basis, like just an internal analysis, so I knew where I stand in my business, because it's something I have a little bit of financial anxiety, right? So I don't know why, but I don't like to open letters from the bank, or I don't love to actually check my bank account so much. So knowing that was something I outsourced, because I know that I have to have this information to make good decisions and not eventually be my own downfall. The next one is missing revenue streams, right? One thing when you try to get your membership off the ground is that for a while, at least, you'll need to cross-finance that membership, right? So I actually recommend, as a revenue stream for beginners, don't quit your job, right? I think it's very irresponsible to have so many, even big names out there that tell you to fire your boss or quit your 9 to 5. I personally did that when one of my businesses exploded to a point where I couldn't physically do both jobs anymore, and I had already significantly replaced my income. I would recommend, especially in this economy, don't put yourself at risk. Keep that revenue stream of your work to cross-finance. And even once you start to build up your membership, think about smart ways in which you can make the most out of your effort. For example, if you are on Skool, like I am with one of my memberships, I still have memberships on Facebook. I also have one on Skool. I have multiples on Skool. What I would recommend, incorporate Skool affiliate in your emails. I have started to add Skool affiliate in the footer of my emails, right? Of course, properly disclaimed. And I'm now at over, let me just double check. So $3,000 a month from the affiliates, and this is recurring affiliate commission, right? So you can definitely build something up. Also, if you want to know how to build your audience, I've made a video about this. One of the audience channels that I'm focused on is YouTube, and YouTube also pays you ad revenue, right? So it's not too significant, but it can definitely also add to the income. This is an income stream I would embrace early. Other income streams that you can think of that I would also embrace early is to do paid one-to-one sessions. That will also really help you to gain clarity around your messaging as well. And you can even consider taking on some done-for-you work, especially if it's in an area where it helps you with your membership. So when I started my business, I still did a lot of done-for-you Facebook ad setup, funnel building. I did done-for-you social media posts. I did done-for-you design work. All was paying back into my skill set as well. So I got paid to learn. I got paid to be better. Think about revenue streams to make it sustainable, to again be able to mentally stay in the spiral of this will work. I have it under control. It's very, very hard to stay in that spiral if you're drowning, right, financially. So make sure you have your baselines covered. Maybe reduce spending in some areas as well. And then it will be easier to not get to the desperation station. Next, we have the big chapter of member experience. So here are the risks. Poor onboarding. This is where you can shoot yourself in the foot so easily. Onboarding is the most impactful thing that also we can have when it comes to reducing churn. I made so many mistakes with this, right? I underdid it. I overdid it. I made it like way too complicated. I made it way too little. I sent people no emails. I sent people 30 emails. And so the ultimate sweet spot that I landed on was helping people to understand where they need to dive into the program and having an onboarding activation step that is meaningful for everyone. And so I mentioned this in my How I Managed 2,700 People Alone in my paid community video. It has since increased because I've only been on waiting list, I'm planning a bigger opening soon. That post, like with the onboarding giveaway, that's what I do. I do a weekly accountability giveaway in my community where people declare their goals for the week and then come back and update their goals, right? If they have accomplished them or not. One person wins. And if you're doing all 4 weeks of the month, you win a little bit of a higher price. What that does in the onboarding is it helps new people to understand what shared goals the community has. And so they're able to dive in quicker. And because it is rewarded with a giveaway, it also is an activation step people are taking. This is what has worked best for me from the onboarding so far. But onboarding can be a big downfall. You need to find what works for you and you need to test. Technical friction. I know we wouldn't think about this, but I can't tell you the amount of people who have fallen out because they feel insecure about how to use a Facebook community. They feel insecure about how to use Skool. So you need to help your members navigate those things. And on Skool, I think I can even do a better job incorporating this more and sending people a welcome message, but also including, hey, if you're completely new to Skool, this is how you use it. Now, the next thing is inconsistent programming. A lot of us set up a delivery schedule for their memberships and for their paid communities. It's like, in this month we do this, in this month we do that. And then we realized that it's not sustainable. When I was doing like a monthly schedule, I realized that I'm just overloading members. The number one reason, by the way, why members churn is overwhelm. So I was just overloading them and I was also overloading myself. So I actually went away from a scheduled content calendar and I went towards community impulses. So the biggest content thing that I do is actually creating free content that I also share with my community that sparks questions. And then I can see when the community gets scattered and I take an inventory of what questions do we have and where people are struggling and what's currently working for me, I can introduce, a pop-up program. Like, for example, we had the video sales letter. Hey, we're doing this together. I use the educational trifecta. There will be training, the knowledge. There will be an implementation session, the accountability and getting things done, implementing. There will be a feedback session to help people understand if they had it correctly and how they can optimize it moving forward. I did this as a so-called option event. So people could pay separately for it, or they could get it for free when joining the community on time. And those events, they really help to bundle the focus, but also to remind the members that they're getting something of value that others are paying for that are non-members. Programming too consistent can actually be a strain on you and the members. You need to really lean into the community and let your free content guide what's being asked and what's happening in your paid community. Now, mismatched expectations is the next mistake. This one is really huge. You are actually creating 90% of the entitlement and expectation mismatch in your communities through your advertising. It's something that I talked about recently in one of the programs when I reviewed a lot of ads from my members. You're always talking about the result, the outcome. You never talk about the input, right? So if you want to have members that are ready to do the work, that are not entitled and that don't have high expectations, then don't set them by only talking about the after and the results and the outcome. Talk about how you help them with the inputs. That's a way in which you can use your free or paid advertisement to educate people and prime them so they come in with more realistic expectations and the willingness to do your work. The big upside of that is also that it is much easier to make your advertisement compliant if you approach it like that. Another way to correct this is with your free content. Again, your free content, what I'm doing here, I'm mostly doing for my paid members so that they are reminded of the value I can offer. They're hooked back into the community, but also so that their expectations are reset around what it actually takes to make a successful community, right? I can massage this and support on this much deeper in my communities, and we can do projects like creating the onboarding, etc. together. But these free videos, they really help me to draw people back in and to reset expectations. So if you overshot a lot, stop overshooting, correct your marketing, and then use free content to set the record straight. Last but not least, it's also that you need to lead by example, right? So the way you're showing up, it will trickle down into how your members think they need to show up. So, if you are always trying to get it easy and quick, your members will also try to always get it easy and quick. If you're jumping a lot from one opportunity to another without making it a sophisticated test balloon, right? And not debriefing your experience, this is the behavior you'll see replicated in your members. And then you also don't have to be surprised if they jump away from your opportunity. Next one is poor retention systems and high churn. So currently I have reduced my churn and growth, Evelyn, to 6%, which I'm really, really proud of. We have been over 25% when I hadn't optimized things and I needed to moved from problem-solving community to community around my personal brand, and I needed to fix all those things like onboarding, etc. So the biggest levers that I found for reducing churn was first to know my data. I work with Kevin Wong there, and he pulls very, very detailed data from my community, so I can see what's working and what's not working and where I am in the journey. The next one is the free content, which really helps to get people back in. The onboarding, it's your biggest lever in reducing churn. Simple but activating is what we're aiming for here. And then last but not least, the biggest game changer other than the onboarding was for me the annual offers, right? So offering a really, really attractive annual, that was for me the biggest unlock now in reducing the churn. And what I did was I let members know that I will create a course as an annual bonus. And if members upgrade to annual, they can be part of the live creation. So I basically ran a pilot program with them and made that as an incentive for the annual upgrade. And now I have, once I've finished, I also have for all the new members that are coming in from future openings, right? Because I'm having a wait list. I'm not upgrading always open anymore. There's a video about this on the channel as well, if you want to know why. I can now let them know, hey, if you're upgrading to annual within this time frame, I'm also unlocking this course for you. So annual unlock, really, really big game changer when it comes to churn. Now let's talk about community culture. So here we have engagement risks mainly. The first problem here is the failure to reach a critical mass. What I recommend here is to focus on audience growth. Again, my recommendation to watch the audience growth video, plus doing a founding cohort. You would want to kickstart things with a pilot program, right? I like to do a workshop for this, explaining the opportunity and then launching into a 4 to 6 weeks done with you. I just did this. I want to help others to do it. That's a beautiful way to first off see if you actually want to have a membership, because you'll see how it's serving in the setting is to create the first framework body of work that you have. And then also to have a critical mass of members to start with once you start filling up the community. That will also help you with the next problem, community culture. Now, when you have seeded your community well with people that you got results, that know your values, that have seen your heart and that you're there for them, they will help you to create the right culture in your community, right? So it's really about the people that you're seeding the community with. The next one is the echo chamber dynamic. A mistake that can happen as you grow your community and as you grow your following, you will get fans, right? It's a beautiful thing, but it's also tricky because fans will not be honest with you. I had a lot of fans when I tried in 2020 to go into the CEO role. So I made all of these processes and operation and whatnot. And my members liked me so much that they didn't tell me that they thought it was shit. And the problem was that I was running on this for months, not hearing the feedback, because I was in this echo chamber of, we love you, Evelyn, not hearing my community feedback. It was only once members then started talking with each other, not with me. And eventually some things cracked up and I was like, there's underlying dissatisfaction, right? And I have not noticed it because I'm in this echo chamber of members appreciating me as a person and everything I've done for them to a degree that they don't tell me that they don't like what I'm doing right now. So what you need to do here is you need to make sure that you listen to people and give the opportunity to give private feedback. And then also on the other hand, where you can overshoot then is if you're taking single loud voices too seriously. So once it cracked up, I was listening to, it was less than a handful of people, and I tried to overcorrect and change everything. And that was too harsh, right? So it was, I guess what you really need to do is you need to run service and you need to look at what's true for the majority of your community. So very, very dangerous. Once you grow, you will eventually end up in an echo chamber. You need to run service to avoid that. Toxic behavior. You can have in your community people who have toxic behavior. And what you need to have, of course, is your community guidelines. But what I really realized that people who have this type of behavior, they're not bothered by community guidelines. So what you again need to have there is your skills to set boundaries with people, going back to that initially. And eventually you need to give them a warning, a strike, and then you need to get them out. Especially people who are like that, it can be very torturing to have that confrontation, but you need to get them out. I personally send a full refund, just out of my world, no touch points. And that often is the only thing that we can do. And you need to react quickly, although it's painful and although it's scary, and especially if you don't like conflict like I do, but that can really, really sabotage your community. So act quickly. here when you have toxic people. Low participation in your community. Again, you need to fuel that because you keep aiming higher with your goals. You keep documenting the journey in your free content. You funnel back your experience in your community. Members will like that. They will feel inspired by your amount of action, right? And willingness to expose yourself to experience by the progress that you make. They'll start to ask questions. You can make an option training about that you sell to others, give for free to your members. Attention is bundled again, people making progress again, everyone happy. Don't overdo it so people don't feel overwhelmed. When you see the scattering begins again, repeat the same process. Keep aiming higher, keep sharing, keep leaning into answering their questions in pop-up content. Next one is missing connections. So one problem is when all of the touch points in a community lead back to you. So basically all members tie back to you, and then you don't have a strong network because you're like the sun with your rays out, right? But there's no connection between members. What you need to do there is to really pull back from the community. And I know it's so weird because you feel like you're going silent and the community will crave you, right? It will be like, where's Evelyn? Like, we want to hear from her. But you need to endure making that space. And you also need to endure some people not being happy that you didn't answer the question, because that's the only way, if you make space, that members start to have form those connections with each other. And only then can you have a really strong network and not just be the sun, that warms everyone around you. Unclear norms. Now, this goes back to the culture of a community, right? So when you want people to engage, you also need to make sure that they know what kind of behavior is desired in your community. You withdraw, but you also intentionally interact with the type of content you want to see. You leave a long comment of appreciation, or you highlight it in another way that you pin it, for example, on top of the group. That way, your community will know what's appreciated, and you're basically creating the norms. Of course, you have your community guidelines, but through subtle systems and through rewarding wanted behavior and ignoring unwanted behavior, unless it's to a point where it's toxic. Now, next is your growth engine. Here, a big problem is that people don't understand input to output. So we underestimate the amount of input it takes to get a desired output. This is why often we think like, oh, we did input, we didn't get the output, we need to switch the model, but we just needed to get more input. I actually give my members calculators so they can calculate the input to a certain action to see what kind of outcome they can expect. Like in a lounge, I give them an audience size calculator and it's eye-opening for them, right? So then they're like, oh, no wonder my launch didn't go well. Like it just didn't have sufficient audience size. Now, closely related to this is the problem of KPIs missing. So you would now want to know, when I have identified a marketing activity where I made a hypothesis that it will lead to the outcome of somebody joining my community, what are the small actions that I track along the overall effort so that I know what's working and what's not working. Big problem is people think black and white, it's working or it's not working. Only when you have KPIs defined alongside that will you be able to see what has been working to what extent. For example, for a funnel with an ad directly to your school community, you start with the CTR all, CTR link click for it, cost per click, unique landing page views, and then eventually the conversion rate, and then the annual upgrade rate, right? So those are all the small things that you can measure. And when you see something is underperforming, like your CTR all is really low, you know that your ad visual is not scroll stopping enough and you need to rework it. Or when you have a really low cost per click, but then you have a low conversion rate, well, your ad didn't pre-sell enough. Your ad probably didn't communicate the price clearly, didn't set the expectation well enough. And that's why your about page is not converting. So only when you have all of the KPIs around your effort, you will be able to identify what you need to optimize. And there are almost no things that work right from the get-go. And if they do, you don't know why they worked and you can't repeat it. So start tracking KPIs. Now you have an unstable pipeline. There's one effort that is directly to the sale, right? It can be direct conversion campaigns. It can be webinars. It can be launches of any sort. That's your direct response, right? Your direct mechanism. But there you're always just going for the lowest hanging fruit. You also need to have a lead generating system so that you constantly fill up that pool of people who eventually will buy. So are you growing your email list consistently, right? And funneling them back to your YouTube channel so that you nurture people towards knowing, liking, and trusting you and wanting to move forward? Do you have, for example, like I have a waiting list in my school community. Currently, I have on my waiting list for the community 181 people. I want to have that, so I always have enough members in the pipeline. Another one that kind of correlates with this is that people are not willing to reinvest in their business, right? So they prefer pulling out, to not invest too much in the money because they just don't want to sacrifice certain lifestyle elements or they feel like it's too risky. Your business needs an appropriate reinvestment. For example, only trying to take care of sales, but not about leads and personal brand long term, it will just bleed you dry. So think about how you need to reinvest into your business as well. Now, next is about operational structure. You can have the problem of inadequate support, right? So eventually, as you grow, you will have to set up some sort of team structure. I've reduced my team massively, but I still have back office for email. I still have fallbacks for when I can't do a session. So you need to have at least a minimum viable contractor and team structure to keep your engine running. To keep your engine running, a big problem is also poor systems, right? So if you want to bring on people who can plug certain holes and de-risk certain things, you need to have documentation and systems for them so they know what needs to be done. Weak monitoring. Just like you need to monitor your marketing efforts, you also need to monitor all the other efforts that you do in your business, right? Like customer satisfaction, effectiveness of the onboarding. And also when you work with contractors, what are the things that you measure them by so that they also know what is expected from them? Next one is legal issues. Do you have your terms of service? Do you have your privacy policy in place? Are you compliant? Is your marketing compliant? This can actually be the downfall of your business if you don't paying attention to these things. I can highly recommend the Compliance Academy by Anik Singhal and his software Complyly, where you can check all your marketing copy. I love using this and I love learning about this and just staying on top with all the legal requirements. Now, you can also have data problems. This goes back to people's privacy, how you store data, how you store your recordings. So, if for whatever reason your platform, for example, on YouTube, etc., should get hacked, do you have backups of the videos, etc.? Next one is financial stability. Get an accountant. You need to know about taxes, right? You need to know about your budget and your cash flow and how you can reinvest. Either you need to get really, really good at this or you need to get somebody on top of that for you. Now let's talk about evolution and improvement. Another problem is when you have weak feedback loops. This ties a little bit back into what I said about echo chambers. Here, you just need to make sure that you always asking your members and you also offering opportunities for anonymous surveys so that you really know where you stand in your business. Without surveys and without the documentation, you're missing insight into your members. One thing that happened when I was trying to scale up my operations was that I had less contact with my members and I was starting to have more distance from the community and wasn't aware anymore what they needed. So the things I created actually were going aside of them and it was not what I wanted. And I was wondering why I'm struggling to create things that are in demand as they used to be, but it was because I was lacking the connection, I was lacking the insight. So even if you are going the CER route, try to stay close to your members in the communities, read their comments, read their posts, see where they're at, and also work with polls and also work with anonymous surveys. Next risk, you're making poor decisions. I cannot tell you the amount of times when I'm working with people where our decisions, theirs and mine, like we're reflecting, they're purely emotional. When a big decision is due, don't procrastinate on it, make it, but also pick a decision-making framework. There's many different decision-making frameworks that you can choose that will drive your decision. Make sophisticated decisions, sit down and reflect it through with BI, go through all of the eventualities, be more sophisticated as in how you're making your decisions, especially the big ones. Another risk is that you lose relevance. I see especially problem-centric communities, when the market trend is shifting, they start to lose traction. This is also why I recommend yes, you can definitely use problem focus and I recommend it to get your communities off the ground. But eventually you should shift around a more holistic, centered around you and all your experienced community so that you can avoid losing relevance. And you would still always want to stay on top of the game and monitor trends, etc. If you're genuinely passionate about what you do and you're allowing your space to be set up in a way that it's about your evolution as well, then that will happen naturally. Another problem is that the quality can decline. The quality can be declined either because you're not able to scale operations, or because you've cornered yourself with the content, or because you lost excitement about the community. Some people lose excitement when they feel like they're not getting paid enough for what they do. Be honest and try to assess your quality on a quarterly basis and see where you can improve things. I would schedule a regular quarterly quality check-in with myself to make sure that things are back on track. Now, the next one is scale problems. So this is capacity planning and understanding your growth limits. So for example, for me, I understood that with the current setup that I'm aiming for and the artist that I want to be, I have a growth limit of 3,000 paying members in Grow with Evelyn and 100 members in my mastermind. This is the limit in which I can grow these community businesses, and I'm reaching them. Then I'm looking to scale, my business in other ways, for example, through brand and affiliate things. But you need to know like where your growth limits are. And now I've decided how to correct and how to balance out with price that's also in alignment with my values and the lifestyle that I want. So think about what your version of enough looks like and how you can get there in a way that's aligned. Okay, last but not least, the support problems. Let's check them off really, really quickly. Time management is a huge downfall for a lot of people. A lot of people think that they are productive when in reality they're just consuming content. I am very, very specific about my time. I track my time. I have my prioritization Eisenhower matrix. So I'm disciplining myself in what tasks I'm working on. Next one is training gaps. As your knowledge base grows, you naturally open up gaps, right? And so that can lead to confusion and overwhelming your members. And with that, again, churn. So you need to make sure that you are closing these gaps. And sometimes you're having these gaps either because you're moving too quickly or because you're lacking certain skills, right? So you need to see, am I moving too quickly? Are there hosts that need to be plugged? Or do I have these hosts because I'm lacking certain skills? Then an opportunity would be to learn the skill or to get an expert on to buy the skill in. Tool overload, that can be internally the tools that you're using to grow your business, but it can also be the tools that you are supplying for your members. Again, overwhelm is the number one reason why people churn. I love this actually about Skool. They're adding as little as possible and they're reducing as much as possible to keep things simple. You need to do the same in your business on the inside as well as for your members. Closely tied to this is content overwhelm. When we start our membership on like a minimum hypothesis, we start to then add content of what people need and people will ask us for more, and eventually we have a lot of bloat. So we need to have a frequent routine for going back into our communities and reducing the content bloat and stripping things back and replacing them with new and overhauled content. Huge downfall for people is also the communication chaos. So especially if you're managing your community alone, you need to structure the communication. Your members need to know where and how and when they can get access to you, to which extent, and they also need to know like which channels are closed. Having clear communication systems so you can avoid communication chaos is vital. That also ties in with you need to make it really, really clear how people can cancel. There's actually a new rule coming out, which is the click to cancel rule. So your members need to have it very, very easy to cancel their subscriptions, and they don't have to jump through many hoops and emailing you, etc. Clear communication pathways, making it simple for members to cancel their subscription, making it clear for them for how they can get support is really vital. All right, so those were all the mistakes, how to avoid them, and I hope you found this really, really helpful. I see you in another video.